All right, with me now is Todd Autry. He's a reptile enthusiast living in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he's currently obtaining a master's degree in environmental science from Oklahoma State University, and he's been doing research at rattlesnake roundups since 2009. Todd, welcome to the show. It's been a while. We're trying to get you on here.
It's good to finally be on your show, Edgar. I'm definitely honored you would invite me on.
Yeah, I mean, we used to talk a lot more than we do now, and then I don't know where you went, but you've been around, and I'm sure you've been up to stuff. Looks like you're working on a master's degree. How's that going?
That's going pretty good. It's definitely a field I'm interested in, and it's it's doing me well. It's taking up a lot of time, but it's doing me well. So
that's good. All right. So is today going to be are we drinking during this show, or are we just going to do it straight here?
We're going to have to do it straight tonight because I have to be up early in the morning, but that doesn't sound bad, my friend. Right. Happy hour with Edgar. It does not sound bad.
Yeah, it's I talk a lot more when I'm doing things like that, but I don't drink much. So that'd be interesting, though. I could do a show just drinking, and I'd probably never shut up. It'd be interesting. People like that. People like me better because usually I'm in a crowd. I don't really say much. Life of an introvert.
I can see that.
Online, people think I have this huge personality, and then they see me, I'm like, hi, I'm bad at small talk. I've talked about that. Well, anyway, you've been involved with rattlesnake roundups. You started a group a few years ago on Facebook called Rise Against Rattlesnake Roundups, in an effort to raise awareness to what goes on at many of these rattlesnake festivals here in the U.S. Are you still involved with that?
Yeah, I'm still involved with that. Let me throw in a little addendum. I didn't actually start the group. It was around about 2 years before I joined. But when I joined, I just decided I was going to get loud. And Captain Paul Watson of the Sea Shepherd, talks about, the greatest weapon we have is the camera. It tells a story. And so that's kind of been my philosophy of how I've tried to go about things. So I've definitely been a vocal member. Right now I'm one of the lead admin still in that group and have been for several years. Many people got to know me under the moniker Ray Autry, and that's just the name I went by, but my real name's Todd, and I'm here doing your show today.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes a lot more sense. I used to talk to Ray, now I'm talking to Todd, so that makes more sense. I was wondering, is this his brother? It's the same guy. I was looking at the same pictures and everything. So it's you.
It's me.
Yeah. So, what got you involved? What got you interested in these rattlesnake roundups in the first place? First of all, tell me what these things are, in case people are listening, they don't know what's going on with these, and then how you got involved with that.
Sure. Rattlesnake roundups are festivals in different parts of the United States. At one time, organized rattlesnake hunts took place all the way from New England to down to rounds, and then kind of spread out into Texas and Georgia, places like that in Alabama. Kansas and New Mexico have seen them come and go. They're these festivals that some are more macabre in nature than others. But usually what happens is rattlesnakes are collected from the wild, brought in by hunters who do not want them on their property or wherever they're hunting them at. And a lot of times at some roundups they are, killed and skinned for food and organ purposes and things like that as part of the public show. Some roundups don't do this. Each one's a little different. But what it ultimately boils down to is a large number of rattlesnakes, both eastern diamondback and western diamondback, being taken out of the wild. And that's ultimately what I have the issue with, is the number of snakes they're taking. Right. And these are events that are still happening. Yeah, they are historically on the decline. A lot of people don't really do a lot of research on these events, and they think these things are, these horrible events, and well, many aspects they are, but Edgar, a lot of people don't realize that in 1982, Texas had 44 distinct roundups. Today they have less than 8. So think about that. In less than 30, 40 years, we went from 44 roundups in one state to less than 8. And one in Georgia recently changed from an actual roundup to a no wild collection, no kill humane festival. And I think it's just a matter of time before the other two that are in the East go that way. So I think overall we're on the good side of this. It's just very slow, and a lot of people just have not really done a lot of research on the history of these things.
Are they still making? I mean, all these shows you said there were that many before then, and these were all the taking snakes out of the wild and killing them. I assume as part of the show or at the end of it. So with these just few festivals left, is that still making an impact on the populations of the snakes, or is that even a concern?
I honestly feel that the eastern diamondback is at a state where, based on what I'm hearing from people, zoo people, biologists, people I talk to, the eastern diamondback, one animal gone is one animal too many. They're definitely a candidate for the endangered species list at some point here in the near future. And I think ultimately they're going to go that way. Now, when you get out here to Oklahoma and Texas, where I'm based out of, it's a different story. Each year, most of the roundups bring in about the same number of snakes. Some years they don't bring in many. Next year they bring in, tons. And so a lot of the scientific papers that I've read, and the one I've most recently revisited is the commercialization of rattlesnakes by Charlie Painter and I believe Lee Fitzgerald. It kind of points to the fact that the Crotalus atrox, the western diamondback rattlesnake, is a creature that is very resilient, and that even though I personally believe regional populations are being affected, I don't see a lot of solid biological evidence that they're going to be made extinct by these things anytime soon. Roundups are definitely a concern. I feel they're taking too many animals, but the jury is out based on what I've read from senior herpetologists and biologists and all these other people out there who know way more about it than I do.
I mean, it's one of those things where you think of animals that seem plentiful, and then they're just being hunted like crazy, and that's the kind of attitude that if things like that were continued, and as their habitats get smaller and smaller, that'd be a concern. California used to have grizzly bears,
Right, and the grizzly bear used to be very plentiful in California, from what I understand.
Mm-hmm. It's on our flag. I think that's a grizzly bear on the California flag, and there aren't any left here.
It is, and I definitely think that's a very symbolic, iconic animal to have on your flag. Whereas in Oklahoma and Texas, there are definitely still western diamondbacks around. I won't say there's plenty of them. We do know that they have been eradicated from certain ranges, certain little pockets they used to be in. Now they're not found in certain places, but maybe 2 counties over, 4 counties over. When used to, they were across the entire southern half of the state and even some of the northern half of the state. It just is really kind of a toss-up. And the roundups alone, as far as what they're doing to the population, I don't think that's as much a factor as roundups plus real estate development plus road mortalities. I think then you throw in something like, God forbid, snake fungal disease ever hit out here in Oklahoma or Texas, we may be dealing with an entire different situation. I definitely think that these animals should see better limits from both Texas and Oklahoma game departments. I feel that having unlimited open seasons on them, or 4-month seasons like they have here in Oklahoma, people are taking too many animals. But there's also some tricks that these Roundup folks are pulling, and I'm going to talk about a few of those tonight. And I don't think I've really been real vocal about that, but we'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I think there are some smoke and mirror tricks going on.
Yeah, I'd be interested in hearing that sort. You mentioned the eastern diamondback, I think, is a Crotalus adamantius. Are those affected by roundups? They're over more kind of south and east, right?
Right.
Right. Are those affected, or you did mention them?
Well, I'm definitely not the eastern roundup guru, but basically what I've heard from people living in Georgia is that at one time, Georgia had like 20 rattlesnake roundups. I don't have the documentation on that, and today they only have one that's actually taking wild animals.
And these are the kill roundup.
Right. And there's still one in Alabama, and it's not taking a lot of snakes either. I think they're taking probably less than 100 snakes per show. And I don't expect those to be around much longer. I do think eventually the eastern diamondback will be ESA listed. And some people, there's a lot of debate whether that'll be a good thing or not. But I really don't think those guys can afford to take any more hits. But I think that has to do with them being habitat specialists versus, Crotalus atrox, which, appears to be a habitat generalist.
Right. Do you think their size has anything to do with it, too? Obviously, people are going to avoid snakes. A lot of people don't like them, especially venomous snakes, and the eastern diamondback's pretty identifiable. But those things, they get really big, and so do you think they're more noticeable that way, so people kill them as well?
That could be. I think a lot of people in rural areas of the country, and this goes for anywhere in the country where there are snakes, Edgar, you should know as well as I that people are going to kill snakes wherever they find them in the wild.
Yeah.
People who live in the country, they, whether they're a threat to them or not, or they feel like they're a threat to them or not, people are just going to kill snakes, and it's unfortunate, but it's happening.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. The more noticeable they are, these big things, they're more likely to chase after them or do something with it. But anyway,
right.
We made some bumper stickers a while back. Did you keep any of those?
I think I've still got a handful of those. I definitely enjoyed those bumper stickers. Once in a while, I see one on a car around town, and it's good.
Oh, good. People, we got to make some more of those or something like it. I think I put a Bob Irwin quote on those ones.
Yes, I think you did. It was a Bob Irwin quote. I think it was "education, not destruction" or something like that.
Yeah, and you guys kind of did something similar, not eradication. Yeah, those are good. Do you now you're interested in snakes, of course. Do you keep snakes, or are you strictly on the conservation side of it in the wild?
I do keep a Mexican black king snake, and right now I currently have an eastern chain king snake. I do personally, this is just me talking for myself, I do personally support responsible captive keeping of captive bred reptiles and amphibians. And I'm not really looking to get any more at this point. But I have kept Burmese pythons. I have for a while I did keep some venomous species. I've kept definitely ball pythons. I've kept taking in rescue animals and things. So I'm kind of like definitely on the field herping side today. But I've had my time with working with these animals in captivity for sure.
Yeah, it seems like when people get involved with field herping seriously, it seems like their captive collection tends to shrink down as they're able to appreciate the animals in the wild. And of course, you don't got to feed them; you take their picture, and those are a lot cheaper to maintain as pictures. So that's interesting. Now, as part of the work you do, and others that have done to raise awareness for these kill events, the rattlesnake roundups, there have been people putting on shows now that emphasize education and that are no-kill, like you said. Have you been involved with any of these efforts?
Yes, I was definitely... Edgar, I'm going to go ahead and say this. You started it. The Snake Roundup California, you were the first person I know to come up with the idea. So
that never went anywhere. That funding never went anywhere, but I still have the idea. I think I still have a website for that.
Yeah, definitely. I still have the Snake Roundup California page bookmarked just for sentimental reasons. I will say this: I was involved with the Texas Rattlesnake Festival. The 3 years it operated, the 2 years before it got off the ground. I was at the first one and I was at the last one. Did not happen this year, unfortunately. There was another event that happened over on the other side of Texas called the Lone Star Rattlesnake Days Festival.
Yeah.
And I believe there's another one in Houston called the Texas Venom Experience. And all I'm going to say is I think any positive education or support deserves our, our time, money, energy. Are they going to stop the roundups? I mean, take a guy who, is a bass fisherman and take him to the aquarium. And, is he still going to want to go fishing next weekend? You kind of got to think of it like that. So I think these things are good. I think any positive event for, rattlesnake education is needed. And definitely these things are good. But there's been a lot of talk about converting one in the West to no-kill, no-wild collection like the one in Georgia. I believe it was Claxton that recently transferred over. And I just don't think it's going to work out as easy in the West as it did in the East. It's not going to get the support of the game departments. It's not going to have the donors and things come in. So while I'm not saying it's impossible, and I'm not saying it's not something we don't hope for, it is. But it's just not going to be as smooth a ride as one like the Georgia one that reformed.
We need like a snake advocate to win the lottery or something, and then start funding these kind of things. I don't know what else there is to do. Money's a big part of it. I mean, where do you get it if nobody's wanting to? People. It's easy to get people to save puppies and kittens, but so people might ask. Most of the people listening probably know this stuff already, and they like snakes. But what about the listener that's like, what do you care? They're just rattlesnakes. Why not get rid of them? Why do we need to help them?
Well, we need to help them for a number of reasons. They're an intricate part of the ecosystem, and I live in a state that has, I think, 5 different species of rattlesnake. And me personally, I know what it's like to hike 4 miles through the woods to a known den site and not see a single rattlesnake. And they're still there, you're just not seeing them. So, these people, I understand, people will take a hoe or, a shotgun to them when they show up on their porch. I'm kind of wondering why I'm not the guy who gets lucky and has the rattlesnake show up on his porch. That way I don't have to go through the woods and put up with the ticks. But these animals, they eat, a healthy adult rattlesnake will eat 15 to 25 mice over the spring, summer, and fall period before they go back into brumation. Okay, those 15 to 25 mice don't breed and make little mice. They also consume the ticks, fleas, and other parasites that live on the rodents themselves. So we're looking at an animal that ecologically does us a ton of good by preventing disease, thinning out other pest populations, and other things. The benefits of these animals are unreal. And then you get into the venom and medicinal side of this. And, today we have medications for, heart disease, diabetes, all these things, cancer. They're researching viper venom as, potential cures for this. And some of it they're already working on. I think we need more of these animals, not less.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know from species that we've lost, that have gone extinct, how we could have benefited from them if they were still around. We're making discoveries every day about animals in the ocean and pretty much any habitat, especially from animals that produce a venom or a poison. That we're finding new ways to utilize them, be it to make medicine or whatever it may be. So, if this animal does go away, I mean, it could be something that later on could cure the next, big thing.
Definitely.
And they are doing that. I mean, obviously, there's several venoms that are being researched, and from that research are creating new medicines for pretty much everything. So it would be a shame to lose any animal to just to this sort of archaic tradition. What do you think it is about these kill type festivals, these rattlesnake roundups that do the killing and the traditional thing? That what do you think it is that makes them want to preserve these archaic traditions that, as we said, so stubbornly? Is it because they're making money from it, or they don't really want to do it a different way? What is it?
Well, Edgar, think about this, and this is one thing that the average person who doesn't attend 3 or 4 of these a year doesn't really wrap their mind around. What happens to any host community, like let's say Ortega, Oklahoma, or Sweetwater, Texas? What happens to that community if they wipe out rattlesnakes? The roundup goes away. Okay, if the roundup goes away, so does the $2 to $6 to $8 million of tourist money that comes in from these things. So my theory is they're not wanting to wipe these animals out as bad as it looks to the untrained eye. I don't think for a minute Sweetwater or Waurika or Apache, any of the bigger western hunts, are trying to eradicate these animals because they bring so many tourists to their towns every year.
So I mean, but why keep the same traditions? The things we have issues with, sewing the mouth shut for pictures, and then killing the animals at the end. Do the no-kill festivals? Is this something that could be transferable to be added to the tradition, or is it the killing that people come for, or what is it?
Well, that's kind of, it's, to me, it's majority. The majority of it is market based. You have the people who show up because they like to buy rattlesnake meat and they like to eat rattlesnake. So you have people who show up to buy the meat. You have people to show up who buy the skins. There's certain tourists that buy the gallbladders for homeopathic medicinal purposes. It's definitely a money thing, but I think it's a money thing that a lot of these western hunts want to keep going. They're definitely not wanting to totally wipe the animals out, but they are definitely wanting to make money off of them, and that's what it ultimately boils down to is money. Because once it became more profitable to do it a different way, I have no doubt in my mind that these events would change. But right now, it's just very profitable to keep doing what they've always done. And I do think they're taking active steps to manage things to ensure that they have rattlesnakes. I really do.
Because without the snakes, they don't have the festivals either. And they don't have the money coming in.
Right.
Yeah. Do you see these festivals going away? You said you kind of see them on the decline. Earlier you said there's just 1 or 2, but then again, all the business goes to those. So do you think this made these few festivals stronger, that they can continue since there's not as many around, or do you think they're going to hang around a little bit longer? What's the time frame, you think? In 20 years?
I think a lot of them that exist today in the West, and right now I think there's 7 in Oklahoma and 8 or less in Texas. Texas is a little sketchy because one old one got resurrected, but 2 other old traditional ones fell by the wayside recently and went under and are no longer operating. So there's around 15 or 16 active roundups in the Texas-Oklahoma theater as of the moment. But I think, honestly, we're going to start seeing more of them decline over the next 10 to 20 years. And what's going to happen, at least from my observation, is the great-grandfather that started the rattlesnake roundup, let's say in Waynoka, Oklahoma, or Okeen, Oklahoma, he dies, he passes it on to his kids. So now you have grandpa doing it. Well, he passes it on to his boy, and that's dad. Well, dad Dad's doing it now, and Dad's holding it together. Well, now Dad's having kids, and instead of staying there and being farmers and ranchers, the kids are going off to Dallas or Oklahoma City to college, and from there they'll probably stay in the city, probably not move back to the country and carry on the family farm that has been in the family for 10 generations. So when you lose these key people from the community, that's where the roundups, if someone really good and competent doesn't take it over, that's where, certain individual roundups, I think, are going to see a lot of struggles in the next 5 years. And then I firmly believe more of these things will go extinct in the next 5 to 10 years.
So to speak, yeah. Now, you obviously are a very vocal part of Rise Against Rattlesnake roundups. Walk me through the process of when you guys started this and what you guys were doing back in the day when this all got started and some of the methods you used, and catch me up to where we are today with Rise Against Rattlesnake roundups.
Well, Rise Against Rattlesnake roundups was a group of about 100 college kids and reptile keepers and things when I joined. And it was spearheaded by a guy named Dr. Jared Wood, who today recently got his PhD. He's teaching college in Texas. And he's a PhD in zoology. And he grew up in the middle of the Warrika, Oklahoma rattlesnake roundup. He's from there. He knows more about how a roundup operates than anyone in the reptile community. I would put his knowledge up against anybody. He kind of started the group, him and another gentleman from Canada, and it just kind of took off after a while. I came in, was vocal, was very pushy. I would take, bad videos I found on YouTube and just post them on your page, whether you liked it or not. You would delete them, or you would block me, or you would say, don't do that on my page, and I'd say, okay, then I'd do it on your friends' pages.
Kindred spirit here.
We kind of definitely pushed to get the message out there that we felt this is a crisis that needs some attention. Now, you start speeding up a few years. People like Bill Rulon Miller, who's definitely a strong part of the Rise Against Rattlesnake Roundups group from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, starts becoming more involved as well. He drafts a petition sometime back and gets it signed by a bunch of scientists and biologists, not to end roundups, but for, asking Texas Parks and Wildlife to make the act of burrow gassing illegal. It's illegal in Alabama and Oklahoma, even though it probably still goes on there to some degree.
Go ahead and describe that for what people, if they don't know what that is.
Burrow gassing is where someone will take a bug sprayer type canister, one that you would use to put weed killer on your lawn.
Yeah.
They put gasoline in it. They pump it up a few times and spray a little bit of gasoline or gasoline fumes into a burrow. And basically what this does is this drives the rattlesnakes out of the other side of the burrow, because they get, a few whiffs of hydrocarbons and they decide they can't breathe and there's no fresh air. So they go running. Someone on the other side of the rock catches them as they come out. It's definitely a practice that, to me, if you're going to hunt rattlesnake, I don't think you should be flushing them out of hibernation, which is basically what they're doing.
Right, so we talked about those sort of efforts where you not necessarily trying to get rid of them altogether. You kind of find a big pushback with that, but try to eliminate some of the bad habits they're doing, like gassing.
Right, you're probably not going to have a lot of effect with an anti-hunting campaign in states like Texas or Oklahoma, where 99% of the residents favor, lenient hunting laws. A lot of your game departments are funded by hunters. Hunters are, probably, in Oklahoma, I would say hunters are probably 96% of the dollars that come into Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation, whereas, herpers are, maybe 2.5. Definitely you do, we do have some kind of say in some of these states, but it's not big enough to affect change. And what Bill did was kind of brilliant. he brought together a lot of people. It wasn't about quantity, it was about quality. And he had this petition drafted and submitted it to Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. Well, they actually read it, took it seriously, and I think they thought to myself, oh my gosh, here's this guy calling us out. He's got all these scientists. What do we do? So they formed the Snake Harvest Working Group in Texas a couple years back. And that was made up of a couple of different herpetologists, some of the Sweetwater JCs, and some miscellaneous landowners. And they analyzed, the financial effects of the Roundup, hunting with gas, without gas. There's a large paper on the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department site that has the findings of this group. They address the fact that roundups aren't needed for anti-venom collection anymore, even though they probably once were. They're definitely not now, no matter what they say. And so it addressed a bunch of different things. It got further than many of us ever thought it would. We kind of thought they would just send a piece of paper back to us and say, here you go, kids, nice try. They actually listened to what Bill had put together. And the fact that they even examined it till earlier this year, knock it off the table, was definitely disheartening. But they know we're out there. They know, we're not screaming make the roundups illegal right now. We're screaming make burrow gassing illegal in Texas, and we'll keep screaming that, I think, for some time.
Well, it's interesting. It's probably a more effective method for sure to pick on these little things, kind of like the animal welfare groups that don't outright want you to own any pets, so they go after what's easy first. So they say make it illegal to, make it easy. We don't want people to have lions, so they get rid of people that have lions as pets, and then it comes down from there. Exotic pets, and then that can be included in a big number of things. So if they're trying to get rid of lions, they'll throw in a bunch of other stuff in an exotic pet bills, and then focus on the lions, which people generally will sign up on, right? And so you guys are kind of doing the same thing, incrementally kind of trying to get rid of what makes the roundups, so offensive.
Right. We definitely see things from that angle. We, our opinions are very varied in the Rise Against Rattlesnake Roundups Facebook group. We have, people who are members of PETA and HSUS and Born Free. Right. And then we have, Joe Ball Python breeder down the street. We have everybody in the group kind of all pulling for the same thing, which in the end is some dignity and respect and decent regulations on the commercial take of rattlesnakes in this country.
So is that where the focus is right now, kind of trying to tie the hands of what's the things of the roundups that's so offensive? Is that what Rise Against Rattlesnake Roundups is focused on right now mainly?
Yeah, I would definitely say that's one of our stronger points. We will always definitely be vocally outspoken about the mouth sewing that occurs at two different Oklahoma roundups. It doesn't occur in Texas anywhere that I've seen, to the best of my knowledge. But we have confirmed that it is still going on at two Oklahoma roundups. We'll always be screaming about that too, because that's blatant felony animal cruelty. We've let a lot of people know why someone like HSUS or PETA doesn't jump on that, and take my footage, do something with it, and have an easy win. I will never know, but but we're definitely kind of trying to get people to think in more progressive manners, and in some arenas we're winning. We are having some great victories right now. It's just they're not being seen and they're not being talked about a lot.
Right, and so you're still attending these things. What exactly do you do? You talked about your filming. What do you do when you go to these things? Do they recognize you? Do they let you in, or do they not let you in? Do they know what you're doing?
Well, I tell you, anymore, it used to be, we would go into these things, get video, get photographs, get people talking about things that they didn't really kind of realize at the time, that we weren't in favor of taking a rattlesnake and sticking it in a freezer and sewing its mouth shut. Or they didn't kind of realize who we are. Today they recognize me. I come in, they usually, hey, it's the RARR guy, or something, and I'd been out of the field for a little while there. This year, RARR was all over Texas and Oklahoma and Pennsylvania, which still has some, one animal roundups. It's definitely this was a huge year in the field for us. And what I do is I go in, get pictures, get video, get audio. I try to talk to the hunters. I try to find out where they're coming from. And at 2 different roundups this year, I was actually able to film from inside the snake pits where they keep these animals. So I was able to get some really amazing footage of some things going on at some of the handling shows, but also at like the one in Oglesby, Texas, where I was graciously welcomed in. They pretty much invited me. They said, we want you to come down and visit with us. And Oglesby is kind of different. They do collect snakes out of the wild. They do not kill them at the roundup there. There's no bloody handprints on walls. A bunch of old-timers from the Heart of Texas Snake Handlers Club do a handling show, and then that's kind of it, and everybody goes home. They definitely listened to what I had to say about, the treatment of the animals while they're in captivity, things you do in shows, things that you guys don't think about, but here's what a snake person thinks about. And they're definitely listening to me in places like Oglesby, Texas. It's someplace I'm very hopeful for in the future.
Right, so these are the places you're going now. That's the work you're doing now. Obviously, you guys learn from the years you've been doing it. Are you guys making progress with all this?
I definitely think so. We, none of these things are going to just up and change overnight. And what I found out is when I first came up in RARR and first started gaining popularity, I was, basically getting this footage that they didn't want revealed out to the world. Today, I'm more apt to call a roundup organization, say, look, I'm going to come in, I'm going to film, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Let you guys know I'm coming. Let you guys know I'm not really big on your deal, but I'm very open to discussing it with you. And that makes a lot of difference to them, because if you step in a roundup organization's shoes for a minute, say someone like, the Apache Rattlesnake Festival or the Sweetwater JCs, those guys get so many comments and messages and emails from keyboard warriors. But then, how many people, pick up the phone and call them and say, look, okay, this is what we can live with. This is what we can't live with. Do you think there's any way to change this? Do you think there's any way to get this to give? I myself personally learned from a lot of what I think were mistakes that I made early on in certain parts of Oklahoma. And those are some of the places that I really don't ever want to go back to again, because, I just made some people there so mad with what we were doing. Although I feel it was the right thing to do to expose what they were doing, I think it may have hurt our chances of affecting it at that specific roundup. That's why today when I went into, when I go into like Waynoka, Oklahoma, or Oglesby, Texas, definitely going with a different attitude, one of tolerance. They know who I am. They know I don't like the wild collection, but they also know that I care about their town. I care about, what the event does for the community, and that, I don't want to necessarily take that away without replacing it with something else equally significant.
Right, and obviously people want to do something to help, obviously. You were pretty vocal, you said, especially with Rise Against Rattlesnake roundups in the beginning, and then it seems like the group kind of quieted down. Am I just not seeing the posts, or did you back off a bit for a while?
Well, there's definitely still a lot of people involved with that group. I would say there's a lot going on with that group, but it's not being publicized as much. You're not seeing about it. We're not talking about it. We definitely kind of have had some more of our more colorful characters, leave for other ventures or get pulled in other directions. I myself, I'm taking care of elderly parents. I went off and I got married. So I'm kind of becoming a bit of more of a family man, and it's definitely slowed down my activities. I'm working on a master's degree. We've had some other members kind of have their lives jerk them in similar directions. Where the guy who was real active with us in Alabama and Texas, can't go to the hunts every spring anymore and do what he was doing because he's had 3 kids in 5 years. So in a way, it has slowed down a little bit. Now is not a huge traffic time for us like it was back in 2010 and 2011 when you were making bumper stickers, the Hyatts were making the shirts. Bob Irwin was threatening to come over here, of all things. Danny from UJR was getting banned from Sweetwater. They were exciting times and a lot of things moving in a lot of different directions. Unfortunately, the internet, it's for people with short attention spans. And you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, actually, I hate to interrupt you, but it seems like people involved in the reptile community, they'll be real vocal and do work for a while. It seem like these real strong powerhouses, and then the environment on the internet and social media seems to change as people drop out of the hobby. Or they get married or whatever's going on. They have business. What do you is that what's happening? I've noticed that it seems like the landscape changes so often. It'll be real vocal. You're posting the pictures and videos for a while, and then people just kind of disappear. What goes on there? Is it just that they get busy, or life changes, or do they get frustrated that nobody else is doing anything? What is it?
It's some of all of the above. Dealing with the frustration of people who think, a change.org petition is going to do a damn thing.
Well, that's the easy thing, right?
Yeah. That will make you pull your hair out alone. You have to get to these things. You have to form relationships with these people. You don't have to like what they're doing. You don't have to be their fans. But you do have to cross that bridge, and it's a tough bridge to cross.
Well, it takes more work, Todd.
What?
That takes more work. Right?
It takes more work than the average person is wanting to put into it.
Right.
We had an incident this year in Oklahoma where 2 meteorologists had their pictures taken with the sown rattlesnake at the Apache rattlesnake hunt. And honestly, seeing the comments left by other reptile people on these people's Facebook pages and seeing and reading some of the messages they got, it really made me not want to be associated with the anti-Roundup movement or the reptile community. It literally was disgusting and was more harmful than it was helpful. You can definitely be outraged. You can definitely say, I don't agree with this, but some of the lewd and vicious and disgusting things that were written on some of these people's Facebook walls, it turns out these people didn't even really support it or were interested in it. The news station just told them to go out and cover the event and do your broadcast from the festival. And, that's just kind of how that happens. And, a lot of people really kind of took a bad situation, in my opinion, made it worse. When any of these events come under a lot of threat or pressure or a lot of attention, like what we were putting on them in 2011, 2012, a lot of times they tighten up, they hide things, they start not letting cameras in, and then God knows what they're doing because we're not there or we can't get in, or cameras are banned, so we can tell you about it but we can't show you about it. And pictures and cameras, they just have been very powerful. Everybody who listens to this broadcast, whether they know someone like Kim LaForest or not, they've all seen her iconic picture of the rattlesnake and Apache with the stitches in its mouth. That thing has went viral. So definitely getting cameras into these things, especially the ones that are, in my opinion, really bad, is definitely an important thing. But it takes new people to do it, and they, like I said, they see me coming, they might hide things, especially if they're one of the ones that really hate me. And there's a couple of them out there. So, we've kind of been trying to make progress in other areas and learn from mistakes of the past. I would definitely say that's been a goal.
It seems like the reptile community that, especially on social media, they tend to, I know you could, if you disagree, let me know, but they tend to drive towards the negative, and seems to be imploding from the inside out at times, especially when somebody's keeping things a certain way, they don't like it, and if they have, a platform where they can point it out to everybody, they'll just drag their name through the mud, whether they should or not. I mean, what is it? Do you feel that same way about certain aspects of the reptile community? Or am I completely wrong here? I mean, and why do we tend to do that? Is it just human nature to kind of do that sort of thing, or is it something unique to the reptile community? It gets frustrating, and I'm sure a lot of people drop out for that sort of thing. But I see it now as really, common thing.
Well, I think you're dead on, Edgar. I've definitely not only been an activist for rattlesnakes in the wild, and that's my number one most important issue is the ecology and the rattlesnakes in the wild. But like you said, it's people lean towards the negative. People go where the drama is. I try never to bash a fellow reptile person anywhere in social media. I'm sure I have before. I try to encourage peace and tolerance and acceptance everywhere I go, and even with these roundup folks that I used to hate on. I mean, I used to be the ones leaving the nasty messages on their boards. All it did is make them isolate themselves from me, and if they won't talk to me, I can't convince them that there's a better way to do things, and that there's a better way to present these animals and do things. And if we can't stop the harvest of rattlesnakes altogether, can we make it better on the way there, or can we do these little things? And a lot of that stuff is starting to happen, and I firmly believe it's because some people from RARR, although it's been very unpopular with a lot of the reptile community, have made friends with a lot of these rounduppers, and and we're talking to them, and they know we don't like what they do, and they know that they don't agree with what we do. But here's all these areas that people have in common. And, I do agree with this guy when it comes to maybe this political issue or this, NASCAR racing or something like that. So some of us are actually bonding with key people in the Roundup community infrastructure. And, and to me, it's yielding far better results than any petition or protest or anything like that ever could. People want to argue about this with me all the time, and I've kind of got to just turn off their messages because they're stupid beyond their own means. I hate to say that, but a lady in Spain the other day told me that if I had any guts, would go get arrested at one of these things and make it a national media crisis. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, if we could have got Bob Irwin over here that one time and gotten him arrested, it would have made it a national media crisis. But, Todd Autry gets over here and gets arrested in Sweetwater. It's not going to make anything a national media crisis. And honestly, the local news probably wouldn't even show it because they already know what we're up to. So, I mean, you deal with, in the Roundup issues, you deal with a lot of what I would call unmarried marriage counselors. People who think that something they used against seal hunting in Canada is going to work in Texas or Oklahoma, or something that worked in Norway for the fox hunts or whatever is going to work in Texas or Oklahoma, and we're just dealing with a different geopolitical and conservation landscape over here.
There's something to be said for tact. I think that's the good word, and you have to, politic in this sort of situation. I mean, everyone on social media is an idealist. This is my opinion. This is what I want. Give me this, or nothing else. Screw you if you disagree with me. But it's almost impossible to do that sort of thing. Kind of like the incremental process we were talking about earlier. It seems like people, they bash this, they bash what they don't like about the reptile community, and it seems to cultivate more of the same attitude among people who are, impulsive or they don't have that sort of tact or interest in sort of reconciling everything in the reptile community and bringing them together for the positive. I think if people were focusing on the people that they don't like, that they're bashing, and that's all they're doing, and they, like you said, find the things that you do like, that you do have in common, you'll end up finding more of that, and you'll end up cultivating more of a relationship with those sort of people. And, if you don't like something they're doing and you already have a relationship with them in that sort of way, in a friendly way, they're more likely to listen to your concerns if they know you in that way, as opposed to turning them off completely and bashing people within the reptile hobby. It seems like a habit. I mean, if people are listening now, those are my thoughts on that. There's other people that have a platform like this, and they seem to do that sort of thing, and just I do it this way, they're doing it wrong, I don't like it, so you can't like them either. Let's bash them right now. But what you're talking about is tact, building relationships with, I guess you could call them the opposition. And it seems to be certainly more effective, but people don't understand that that's what you're going to do. You can go out and hold a sign up, you can scream real loud at the opposition people that are doing things you don't like, but how many people have changed their minds from reading paint on a sign,
Exactly, and I think you're totally right on in your assessment there, and it carries over to my side over here where I'm at. There's certain things, Edgar, you and I are both men. We've never given birth to a child, so we're never going to be able to tell a woman what childbirth is like. We may watch it, our wives may go through it, our girlfriends may go through it, or whatever.
You're doing it wrong.
But we're not going to know what that's like. In the same token, I pull into a bombed out town in Texas or Oklahoma that has one gas station. If they're lucky, there's a Walmart within 25 miles.
Yeah.
And nothing goes on here but a rattlesnake festival once a year. And the little stores that exist in this community pretty much go back in black financially the weekend of this festival. So it's kind of, you kind of have to see that side of it.
It's a bigger picture.
Put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah.
And then come talk to me about what you think should be done. We have 10, I'll call them idea generators, join RARR a day. And literally, it's kind of got to where it's like, oh, here's another guy with a bright idea that failed in 2009, and I was there, and we did it better in 2009 than what this guy's come up with. And, it's just kind of, people don't understand what they're dealing with here. They're just like, can't you just, you need to just go file a complaint with the district court in that county at the roundup, and they'll do something about it. And I'm like, well, no, look here, wise guy. We actually did that one time. They told us to go away. It was just a snake. And, and we're like, okay, we're going to report our findings to the game department and law enforcement. They said they're not going to care either. It's just a snake. And it's like, you do realize this is illegal? And they're like, no, you don't realize it's just a snake. And, I mean, we've tried all kinds of legal measures and things, not with the financial backing that some of the bigger animal rights groups have, but with just our own resources. And once again, why, when some kid from, Seattle, Washington, thinks he has the golden idea, they join up, they start giving advice. When you don't follow their advice, they get mad and they leave. It's that kind of stuff that really kind of grates on me so much that I find myself being less vocal in the herp community, less vocal about trying to get the message, and trying to spend more of my time on the phone with the people who have clout at these festivals. I talk to them about their kids. I want to know how their dog's doing. I want to know how their grandchildren are doing. And from that stuff, good things are happening. I'll give you an example. Last year, I had fallen into some drama with a certain little herp clique in Texas. I'm not going to mention any names. It's not a big deal. Actually, this was 2 years ago. And they all had me blocked on Facebook. I get a call from a roundup participant at 1 a.m. And I see the name. I know who it is. And I'm like, I answer the phone. I'm going to take that call. And I'm like, hey, what's up? And he's like, well, I got an issue. I'm like, okay. And he's like, I've got a coral snake and I need to relocate it. I just got it out of a lady's garage. What the hell do I do with a coral snake? And so here's a roundupper contacting Todd Autry for relocation advice of a snake that he doesn't want to kill at 2 a.m. And I'm trying to figure out who I can contact in this area. But because I didn't like the way someone did something at a certain show and didn't agree with them or something, I was blocked and had no one to refer the guy to. So I found someone at a local zoo and got that hooked up. But once again, rounduppers call, people like me for relocation advice, a species they're not aware about because we have a relationship.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for that, for sure. Now, what do people need to do? I mean, as the reptile community, this includes keepers, the hobbyists, the field herpers, the professionals, the herpetologists, and, the conservationists. How do we focus our efforts all together long enough to do good for the community? I mean, you described perfectly the millennials. It seems like they're online and there's very little patience there. There's very little understanding of relationships to people. Back, people used to have to talk to each other, You had to have to remember their phone number. You have to build relationships. Instead, it seems, I'm generalizing, the generation wants things right away. They want it now, and they want things different. And if they don't get it, they throw a fit and drag your name through the mud and call you whatever. So, what do you do? It's a different generation. How do we bring everybody together now? The internet can be used for lots of good, social media, and they're very good at it, but they don't understand the relationship part of it. So, how do you get everybody together to do good in this community, in this generation?
Edgar, I really can't answer that because I have had, different groups within the RARR umbrella for sure. I want to do things this way. Well, we don't think that's a good idea. Here's why. And there's no talking to some of these people. It's my way or it's the highway. And if you don't go with my way, blank you. And this is what I'm going to say about you behind your back in another closed group.
To the group that has the same goals as them.
Right. But my point is, I don't know that we can get people together. What I know I can do is I can go and do what I'm doing. And probably before it's all over and they plant me in a cemetery somewhere, 1 or 2 of these festivals is going to have made some kind of positive change based on my influence and my working relationship with them. Maybe not go totally all the way no-kill or whatever, or get away from the wild harvest altogether. But I can assure you that I can put you on the phone with rounduppers today who will say, that guy made a difference in what we currently do in our shows because he came down here, he showed us respect, he talked to us, he didn't call us a bunch of names on the internet.
That doesn't work.
He was for real.
Yeah. So we talked about the roundups and some of their methods. Now you're going to tell us a little bit about the sneaky things they do. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, definitely. One thing I want to leave people with tonight on your show. We don't get to talk often, Edgar. It's always awesome when we do. I want to make it count. Understand the basic principle that if the rattlesnake goes away, so does the roundup. Getting back to the Snake Harvest Working Group from Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, the Sweetwater JCs brought in a CPA to analyze the financial impact of their roundup. And you're talking about a town in Nolan County, Texas that has about 10,000 people. This roundup, the Sweetwater Roundup, which is probably the best known and by far the best publicized for sure, according to a CPA, certified public accountant, who did an analysis of the businesses and everything for the Roundup weekend, it was estimated that over $8 million were brought into this tiny town for this one weekend a year. Tourists from out of the country come to this Roundup. People from all over the lower 48 United States and Canada come to this roundup. Basically, if they can't go there and see snakes or buy snake products, what's going to happen to Sweetwater? It's going to close. It's going to fold. It's going to go under. Please, I hope no one takes this as stereotypical, but people from certain cultures that go there to buy gallbladder, if they can't buy their gallbladder there, they're not going to spend the tourism dollars. They're not going to stay in the hotels. They're not going to eat in the restaurants. They're not going to shop at the stores. So my theory is a lot of these roundups, and I know this to be true of some of the ones in Oklahoma, are starting to do things like throwing back gravid females, not taking them to the roundup, throwing back neonates. There was a time where it was every rattlesnake was fair game.
It's a big deal there, yeah.
And population control and not hunting this ranch this year and hunting another ranch the next year and switching back and giving the populations time to recover, which is what they seem to be doing at some of them, is progress. And why they're not kind of talking more about that, I don't know, because I think that would at least give them some points with the conservationists, if not the herpetologists and the snake pet owners and people like that. I think it's wonderful that some of them are doing that, because it is ensuring that the animals stay in the area and they don't wipe out the population altogether. Because once again, these events happen because they generate money for the town. That's the number one reason they happen. Some of it's tradition, some of it's culture, a lot of it actually is. But if people didn't spend money in the town that weekend, no one would make a big deal over this. No one would pay $4 or $5 a pound for rattlesnakes. I was at the Oglesby, Texas hunt in February this year, and I got down there and was able to talk to some of the ranchers who were turning in snakes. And one rancher was standing there drinking coffee. I said, "What's up with you? Why aren't you turning any snakes this year?" And he said, "They're only $1 a pound this year. I'll leave them in the field and wait for their value to go back up." And I said, "Well, I understand that. Fur trappers do the same thing with things like beaver pelts, fox pelts. People who fur trap in Oklahoma and Kansas, seen them do the exact same thing. They don't want to sell their resources when the price is low. About 800 some pounds of rattlesnakes were turned in at that roundup. It's one of the smaller ones, and none of them were killed on site. I think that's kind of the way to start, taking these things and getting them to go. I feel it's massively disrespectful to the animal to make a show out of its death. Of course, keep in mind, a lot of these communities are agricultural communities. So you do have 10-year-old kids in Sweetwater, Texas, or Apache, Oklahoma, who know where their hamburger meat comes from. They've seen cows get slaughtered. They've seen chickens get plucked. Skinning a rattlesnake is not that much of a stretch for these kids, or the people who live there. And once again, I grew up around agriculture myself. I've seen 1,000 animals slaughtered, and I think that's one of the reasons I, as a snake lover, can kind of go into these events and detach myself a little bit and say, you know what, I need to document this. Yeah, it kind of makes me angry. Yeah, I want to say something about it. But it's more important to get out of there with the information and the documentation than it is to make a scene and get thrown out.
It's important perspective. Todd Autry, that is something that if people listen to this, something they need to think about. They feel strongly about the rattlesnake roundups. It's a lot more to it than you'd think, especially with all the people involved and the economic drive behind them and the people that are putting these on. These are all individuals, and they all have a story, and so it's important that you point out this perspective to people and hopefully wake up the millennials like we were talking about. Okay, we'll give names some of the good guys now who are doing good work out there and their efforts. If you have anybody you want to promote, who should people check out that are doing good for this sort of thing?
On which side? Which are you talking about here?
Who's doing good for RARR or for any efforts out there for the conservation of rattlesnakes that you want to promote?
I definitely would throw a big shout out to Bill Rulon Miller in Pennsylvania. He, after his gassing petition basically got ignored by Texas Parks and Wildlife Department and knocked off the table, he kind of is, recouping and rethinking his strategies, and he's really involved with the Quabbin timber rattlesnake project in Massachusetts, where a zoo is wanting to relocate some timber rattlesnakes into the wild, into an isolated area, and they're under a ton of opposition from the townspeople because these timber rattlesnakes are obviously going to leave the island during winter and slide across the ice into the city and wreak havoc on the local townsfolk. Bill Rulon Miller is someone who has never quit. He's been a powerhouse. Whether you've noticed him as much as you notice me is just probably semantics, but he's done as much if not more than anyone I can think of. There's a guy who's a bright up and comer named Joe Phelan. He has Port City Pythons on YouTube. We needed someone in Sweetwater this year. Joe went. Joe got some amazing footage. He got it up to about 120,000 views on Facebook before, censors pulled the plug and it got the block or whatever, and, you have to click on this, and, so it slowed the traffic down on that. But Joe Phelan with Port City Pythons, a huge shout out to that brother. He basically, messaged me a few months before and said, "Hey, I'm down. What do you need me to do?" "Okay, here's what we need you to do." And then he went and did it. Just someone who can do something is just amazing to me. He got some footage. I know it wasn't easy for him to get, but he got out in the field and went to Sweetwater Forest because he was down there around that time. Check out his YouTube channel. My God, support his YouTube channel, Port City Pythons. Joe Phelan, he's a great guy. Definitely be seeing more from him in the future, I hope. Sarah Aitkenhead, she's a long-term admin of RARR who's kind of always been in the back. She's never been real vocal or in front like I was, but she's done a ton of work behind the scenes for the group. Her and Bill Rulon Miller were actually able to make it to Texas this year to investigate the San Patricio rattlesnake races down by Houston, and how that changed from a roundup to today just a rattlesnake race. And so they collected a lot of information. And then I believe they also went back to Pennsylvania, which is where they live, and I think they hit a few of the roundups in Pennsylvania, getting information up there. J.D. Hartzell, I believe he was there, which you remember J.D. from Herpentine Radio, I trust.
Him and Justin.
Yeah, him and Justin. And J.D. is still slowly working away. He's not in the camera a lot. He's not in the public eye a lot. But these are people that I just named that are, in my opinion, doing massive things for rattlesnakes in this country, and are definitely some of the stronger players in RARR right now. It seems like I'm forgetting one or two people I should be giving a shout out on to. But when you go on with the show, maybe we can do a Facebook Q&A live or something. I mean, that's a possibility. But there's a lot of good people. We just need more who can take an assignment and execute it. And basically those people are few and far between. Like you said, people tend to go with the negative. They want to bash people online. They want to put out hashtags that say F Sweetwater. Definitely I don't agree with stuff like that. I think it's doing more harm than good. But we do have a handful of good guys out there. Dr. Jared Wood, who's now teaching in Texas, I believe he's the one who started Rise Against Rattlesnake Roundups. He's going to be doing more in the future with it. So, you may even see me shrink out of it more and him come to the forefront more. And that might not be a bad thing, because someone who understands the dynamics of the Roundup like he does is just invaluable. So there's just a lot of people out there doing a lot of good things, and definitely focus on those who are doing the good things and who are doing things for the animals and not their own glory or their own attention. and focus on the good and ignore the bad. I mean, we all know there's too much hate in this world, and it could use a little love.
All right, now tell us who you don't like.
Tell us who I don't like. You know, I like.
No, don't.
I like everybody, Edgar. I love every roundupper on the planet. I'm especially fond right now of a guy named Jackie Bibby. A lot of people hate the guy. He's still doing some crazy things with rattlesnakes as far as stupid stunts and tricks, things I don't agree with. But let me tell you about Jackie Bibby. He's put it in print 3 or 4 times the last couple of years. We need to stop burrow gassing. These people at RARR are right. These people over here at USARC are right. You know, we don't need to hunt these with gas, and if you hunt them with gas, it's because you're lazy. He is technically banned from attending the Sweetwater Rattlesnake Roundup ever again because he's spoken out publicly against gassing in the Houston Chronicle. I have the interview. I was also interviewed too at the same time he was there. You know, we were both at the Texas Rattlesnake Festival. Not this year, this year before last. And he's one of the few people from the Roundup community that's saying, I'm not against the Roundups. I'm not against rattlesnake hunting. But if you got to gas a burrow to do it, you're just wrong. And a lot of people from the Roundup world now hate him. And here's all these reptile people who still hate him too. It's kind of sad because we get 1 or 2 of their people over on our side, and you know they wind up just receiving a bunch of hate, and people don't take the time to realize what's going on. You know, it means the world to me that Mr. Bibby has spoken out against gassing publicly, and you know, and whether or not it changes anytime soon or anything gets done about it, we don't know. We don't have visibility of what Texas is going to do right now in regards to that measure, especially after ignoring our recent request. But you know, I really don't dislike anybody right now. If you're overtly negative, I'm probably just going to ignore you because life is short and I don't have time for people who try to bring other people down or for people who try to bring me down. I just would assume not, even consider them.
Some good points, and hopefully the community will listen to you. You've told us what not to do. What can the community emulate? What are some of the things that they can copy and do that others are doing, or what can they do to help those that are already working towards these efforts? What should the community do now?
They should understand that education is the key. Facebook is overwhelmed with people who have seen 4 pictures of the Sweetwater Roundup and think they're an expert, and they don't research anything. They don't learn about the history. They don't learn about the culture. And you see, through doing things like researching the culture, the history, and these other facets and areas, you come to not respect them or respect what they're doing, but you kind of understand how they got there. And then it opens up the door for more conversation. And if right now you could take 50 solid people from the reptile community and each of them befriend a Roundup participant somewhere and really kind of form a relationship and say, look, we disagree here. Let's look at what we do agree on. Let's start there. These people are interested in what we have to say, Edgar. I go to 3 or 4 of these a year on an average year. This year was no exception. I've gotten to where people who were threatening me 4 or 5 years ago or today, yeah, we'll let you film inside the pit. Yeah, you need to get some video. Come on in, bud. No, yeah, how you doing? How's the wife? It's been a transformation, and things like that are changing. And from that, they are listening to us. They need to hear from more of us, but they need to hear from people who will talk to them in a respectful manner, who will go show their face at these things, not hide behind a keyboard. The keyboard warriors are actually setting this cause back several years, in my opinion. That's why we're not releasing a lot of our footage and photos, things like that right now. That's probably why I seem quiet, because I don't know that I want the community's attention to be drawn into this if you're not going to take it and do something positive with it. If you want to bash people, call them, ethnic slurs or, bad names or, derogatory terms, one, I'm going to kick you out of RARR because I don't want to be associated with you. But two, you're not doing anything to help the animals. That's what I'm in this for. I don't make any money at this. I spend a lot of money at this. I'm in this to help animals. It's the people who want to draw attention to themselves, specifically in the reptile community, that in my opinion are hurting the cause because of the way they're going about it. Nothing's wrong with getting attention on yourself as long as you're kicking a good positive message and one that's effective. If I'm going to shoot an arrow, Edgar, I want it to hit the target. And that's what, RARR's about. That's what I'm personally about. And I will keep doing what I know to do is right until the day it all ends. Until the day I go, until the day the roundups quit, whichever. I will do what's right for these animals and what can make things better for these animals. I don't care if the herp community doesn't like it. I don't care if, the ball python guys don't like it. That's irrelevant to me. Will the snakes like it? That's what I'm after.
Todd Autry, again, a great message and good closing statement for us. We've had a nice talk today. I think we can go on quite a bit, but we'll go ahead and end it there. We've talked for an hour, about 15 minutes or so. Thank you so much for coming on the show to talk about the work that Rise Against Rattlesnake Roundups has been doing. Thank you for the work you and others are doing to go ahead and spread these messages of conservation and the little things you're doing incrementally to get these events closer to, a more conservation-minded type thing. Todd, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Dude, thank you so much for having me. You are still the West Coast Wizard, my friend.
I don't know what that means, but I'll take it. Thanks, Todd Autry, out in Oklahoma, getting his master's degree in environmental science and doing good work for animals that many people love, these rattlesnakes. We could take a good lesson from the stuff he's doing and certainly learn from the things he said today. Hopefully people listen this far into the podcast. I think the second half is when the good stuff really started to come out of your mouth. It was really great, and great for catching us up on what Rise Against Rattlesnake Roundups is doing. Todd Autry, thanks so much. You've been listening to the Edgar Ortega Radio Show. You can find us on Facebook. Just type Edgar Ortega Radio. You'll find us, and you can find my personal page there as well. And you can find us on Instagram, Edgar Ortega _radio show. And go ahead and follow us there. And, of course, subscribe. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel so you get all the interviews as they're uploaded. Thanks so much for listening. You've been listening to the Edgar Ortega Radio Show.